go. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Nina Altschiller, President of the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia. The League has been holding forums, educating voters, and defending voting rights for over a century. Many thanks to our 2022 media partner, WJCL-TV 22, their journalists, camera, and engineering crews. Tonight, we will hear from two sets of candidates running for Georgia Senate seat for District 2. Up first will be the Democrats, followed by a 15-minute intermission, and then the Republicans will join us. We are grateful for the candidates being here and agreeing to share their thoughts and opinions about the important office that they're seeking. This is their time to talk to us. This is our time to listen to them. Our questions today are from a broad section of the community and were all submitted in advance. We received more questions than can be asked, but there were many common themes. We've done our best to cover the topics of most interest to voters. It's important to note that the candidates have not received the questions in advance, and the Republican candidates are not in the room. Each candidate will be given a specified time to answer each question. And to make certain that those time limits are kept, we have Hank Reed as timekeeper. Mr. Reed was a colonel in the Army and a senior executive with NATO. He was director of operations for the G8 summit hosted by President Bush in 2004 in Savannah. After retiring, he and his wife moved to Savannah and have been very involved in many community organizations. The League has stringent rules for holding a forum. All the candidates and our moderator have received a copy and agreed to abide by them. Our moderator tonight is Greg Coy, co-anchor for the WJCL 22 Evening News. Greg grew up in New York City and is proud of his West Indian heritage. Prior to joining the WJCL team, Greg worked at WCVB, the Hearst flagship station in Boston, and most recently as the weekend anchor and investigative reporter for WHBQ in Memphis, Tennessee. There he was part of a team of reporters that won a regional Emmy, his second, for protests about police accountability and transparency. Greg is a lifelong member of the National Association of Black Journalists and IRE, the Organization of Investigative Reporters and Editors. When not working, you can find Greg trying to reinvent his golf game, being an active member of Soka Gaikai, USA, and traveling the Caribbean, and learning all there is to enjoy in Savannah and the Low Country. We thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. In my line of work, we like to get started because the clock is always running. So let's get started. The questions have been submitted by members of the public. They have been grouped into topics that the candidates will be asked to address. They include qualifications for their position, qualifications for the position, and their views on major issues of concern to the voters in the audience and those watching us on WJCL.com or on our Facebook and website. Those topics include voting rights, preservation and use of natural resources, gun safety in the face of gun violence, housing shortages, the rapid decline of affordable housing, the rapid population growth in parts of the Senate District 2 that one of you may or may not represent, aspects of health care, including Medicaid expansion, implementation of the Mental Health Parity Act, and a number of issues. Again, none of the candidates have seen the forum tonight. We chose the first candidate by coin toss, and I believe that'll be Mr. Scott, correct? But let's introduce the man who gave up to that right. Derek Malloy is currently the member of the Georgia House of Representatives representing District 163. He assumed office in January 2022. Term ends in January 2023. Born in Savannah, attended Jenkins High School, earned his BA in Leadership and Ministry from Asbury University, as well as an MA in Public Administration from Savannah State University. Orlando Scott is a lifelong Savannah resident, community faith leader who ran as a Democratic nominee for the Chatham County Commission, District 7, graduate of Savannah State University School of Business, has over 20 years of multi-unit leadership experience in the retail industry, as success in leading workers to work at high levels in fiscal and political management structures. Let's start with the questions. Mr. Scott, the first question is directed towards you. Why do you think that you are the perfect candidate to lead District 2 in the next 2 years at the State House in Atlanta?
Thank you, Mr. Coy. Thank you, women, the League of Women Voters of Coastal Georgia, for having us here. I have a vision for this area, for District 2, for Savannah, Port Wentworth, Garden City, Thunderbolt. I believe I'm the best candidate because my vision includes, issues around social justice. I believe I'm the one that can bring the difference around voting rights, the difference around health care expansion, with all the crime that we see in our area today. I don't believe that the current, and I'm speaking of municipal leadership and state legislators, are addressing the issues that matter the most. I'm passionate about it. I believe I'm the right person that can bring, the vision around what needs to happen. And of course, my leadership, experience, over 20-some years of retail executive management is needed. Fiscal responsibility, P&L management, everything across the board is going to be needed in the current legislation that we have coming before us. So, my background, my business acumen, my skill set is the right thing, for this position. We're losing the elder statesman of the Chatham County Democratic Party in Dr. Jackson. We need mature leadership. We need someone that's going to be there, and I'm that person. Thank you.
Candidate Malloy, the same question to you. Why do you believe that you're the best qualified candidate to represent Senate District 2, sir?
Thank you so much, Greg, and to the League of Women Voters and each of you for being here tonight. Thank you to those watching online and to those in the audience. I'm the best candidate to lead Senate District 2 because I have the legislative experience by serving in the State House for my first term. I've gone through a special session and 2 general sessions, and I understand how the General Assembly works. While serving in the House, I introduced legislation to end juvenile life without parole so that minors wouldn't have to die in jail and receive a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. I've worked to improve affordable housing by introducing a rental tax credit bill to allow homeowners or potential homeowners to receive a $50 to $60 credit back from the state of Georgia to help motivate and move people from a pathway of renting towards home ownership. So I'm advocating for affordable housing, I'm advocating for juvenile justice, but I'm also advocating for home rule to make sure that you get to choose how your city operates by the leadership you elect right here in Savannah and Chatham County. You don't need Atlanta trying to impose what you do in your city. We need to make sure that home rule stays a fundamental part of our community and a fabric portion of our society. So I want to make sure that that's available as well. I want to fight to expand Medicaid so that we can make sure our most vulnerable Georgians are covered with Medicaid in this state. When it comes to voting rights, I've addressed the issue of voting rights by going to the well to speak against HB 1564, which was an overreach from the state to increase the GBI's access and their overall involvement in elections. So we went to the well to speak against that bill. So my work has culminated of everything that I hope to accomplish in the Senate district. My work in the House, I think, speaks for what I've been able to accomplish and what I hope to continue to accomplish in the next session if you all choose to send me back as your state senator. This past year, I was named Freshman of the Year by the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus for my advocacy, and I hope to continue that advocacy as your state senator as well. So thank you so much.
Candidate Malloy, question to you. Gun violence. In the city of Memphis, there were 6 shootings over 3 days. It is estimated that gun deaths and injuries cost the state of Georgia $12 billion, of which $581 million is paid by the taxpayers, the people in this room watching you online, $581 million. Since gun violence is a major concern among voters in Senate District 2, how do you propose to address it, sir?
So this past year, I introduced legislation that would allow municipal governments to destroy firearms and seize property that they have in their evidentiary. The reason for introducing that legislation is I think locally we know what's best for our community. We don't need the state to tell us that we have to auction and sell those firearms. Firearms that are confiscated from criminals should be moved to destruction because those people cannot legally own those firearms again. I do think we have to look at ways to also make sure that we're checking in on our neighbors, making sure that we're not leaving unlocked firearms in vehicles. We have to make sure that we're doing our best job to police our neighbors, but in order to solve gun violence, we have to deal with the root cause of gun violence. Gun violence is usually crimes of opportunity or crimes of economics where we have young people who don't have conflict resolution skills, where we have a community of people who think that a gun empowers them to have a conversation. And I think when we give a voice to those who are voiceless in our community and listen to the issues that they're facing in the community that they live in, I think we have a better chance to solve gun violence. Oftentimes gun violence comes from those who are unheard, who do not have a voice, and they use their gun to give them a voice in this community. And oftentimes that happens by taking the life of another individual. And that has happened most personally in my own family when my cousin Cedric Martin was killed on the bus ramp in 1996 at Jenkins High School. And it was merely because a conflict over a young lady could not be resolved with words. We have got to move our kids to a place where they're looking for more peer mediation and talking things out than resorting to guns. But the access to guns continues to be an issue in the state. The legislature just passed constitutional carry, a bill that I voted against. And so my concern is, what do we do as a community? I think we solve that problem collectively together by checking in on our neighbors, by increasing opportunities for young people to have more access to more programs, more access to community centers, by making sure we hear them and we work with them, and we don't just look down on the people in our community, but we try to help lift them up, and that's social mobility, and we can talk a little bit more about that a little later. So thank you.
Candidate Scott, same question to you, if I may repeat it. It is estimated that gun deaths and injuries cost the state of Georgia $12 billion, of which $581 million of those dollars paid by taxpayers, the people in this auditorium watching us online on WJCL.com. Since gun violence is one of the major concerns of voters in Senate District 2, how do you propose to address it, sir?
I think by passing reckless open carry permit gun laws doesn't solve the issue. Right now, we've failed our children. We failed our children. This is not a local issue. This is a national issue. We have to reinvest back into the youth. I'll propose giving additional budgetary spending to our public school systems. We have to catch them early. We have to catch them early. It's a proven fact. If we don't reach our kids and make sure they understand how to read by the third, fourth grade, they're lost. So we need to reinvest money back in the school system. We also need to look at the backlog in our case log in the county DA office. And there's no fault to our local officials for that, but due to COVID and other macro issues, we've created a tremendous backlog of cases where we have felon criminals walking the street. We have felon criminals walking the street, and if we don't take immediate action with budgetary money going to our local county DA office, we're going to continue to have this ongoing issue. It's going to be a revolving wheel with the gun violence, with the murders, and everything else that goes along with it. So that's my ideas around making sure that we address this public safety issue with gun violence. Thank you.
To both candidates, the question I would ask is that what bill would you introduce if elected and sent to the State House that would reduce gun violence in your district that includes the city of Savannah? What specific measure would you introduce? And can you say that it would reduce violent crime by a significant percent? Candidate Scott, you go first, and then the same question to you, Candidate Malloy.
So I alluded to it before. So my proposal is to infuse $1 million per county. So that would be $157 million going per county to add additional personnel to our DA office to catch up this backlog of cases. We have, this is a global state issue, not dedicated to Chatham County. I think we need 3 years of that. We do $157 million for the state first year, $157 million for the second year, and then 50% of that for that third year to bring down that caseload, to take violent felons off the street. That's my immediate solution to resolve the ongoing public violence that's going on in our county. This is right now, what's going on is almost as bad as it was back in the early 90s, late 80s, if anyone was here. And if we're not careful, we're going back to that. And if we don't address it now, I mean, we can write all the bills we want, but I think we need immediate action right now to address this problem. And, you know, that's what I would propose. Thank you.
Candidate Malloy, same question to you, sir.
And Greg, I just want to say it's Mallow.
Mallow,
Uh,
Mr.
thank you.
Candidate Mallow.
Thank you.
It was giving. Right out of the gate, first bill, immediately close loopholes that allow those to purchase firearms from person to person without conducting a criminal background check. So private to private sales is legal in the state of Georgia. And right out of the gate, we have to end the practice of allowing individuals to sell firearms to other individuals without conducting a criminal background check. And so that would help decrease the amount of guns sold to felons, people who shouldn't have guns, because a private to private sale does not require that. And also, we can look at the destruction of confiscated property. Confiscated guns that are in the evidence locker in the sheriff's office, the Chatham County Police Department, as well as the Savannah Police Department, by law have to be auctioned and sold. And so by putting those guns back on the streets, we therefore perpetuate the cycle where we have more guns in our communities that are being sold, that have been confiscated. If we move to destroy those weapons and get them out of our evidence lockers, and for those who cannot possess a firearm, they won't have access to buy one so easy that they could buy one at an auction or some sale that would be private to private person. The other thing that we could look at is what type of penalty or deterrence do we have for those who leave weapons in unlocked vehicles, who carelessly leave a loaded dangerous weapon inside of their car without thinking about what happens when a young teenager pulls a door handle, which is a crime and against the law. And I get that, but we also understand that children are curious, and so we have to have some sort of responsibility as citizens to make sure we protect our neighbors. And by allowing those folks who leave firearms in their car to be stolen knowingly and leave the doors unlocked, we got to look at some accountability measures as it relates to that. And so there's not a one perfect solution to curb violence, but I think earlier intervention and making access to firearms a lot harder will help prevent gun deaths, because we won't have such a large access to those weapons in our community. And so that is my thought process on that, and I work with anyone to help solve that issue. Thank you.
Candidate Mallow,
Yes. Thank you,
question
Greg.
to you, sir. What is your position on the growing interest in vouchers for private schools in Georgia, and do you think the program is being administered properly so that people who may not have access or the funds to take advantage of that program are being able to take advantage of it? In other words, do you think it's being run effectively, or should it be retooled?
I think there's always opportunity when we deal with public tax dollars going to private education, and here's why. Public dollars in public education are held to standards, and that's through the Department of Education. And so when you look at public dollars in these gold scholarships per se going to private schools, those scholarships do help students and do provide opportunity, and I won't diminish that. But however, at the same time, those same private schools are not held to the same standards or the same rigor as public schools. And so how would you feel with your public dollars going to fund private education? Well, that's something that we have to discuss, because as taxpayers, we all do pay taxes, and we have to make sure that we fund our public education to the best that it can be. And if we allow a single individual to pull out and decide to take a voucher and go to a private school, and then what if that child returns back to public school? Well, that money has already gone to the private school, and so now the school system doesn't recoup the loss on that. So now we put an extra burden on taxpayers to then fund that child that comes back into public education. And so I'm a huge proponent that we have to look at every program program to give kids opportunity, but I also think we elect a local school board to help administer and make sure that funds are allocated to our district and to each student in our district. And I trust them and that local leadership to run the school district and to run the school board. And if we don't think our priorities are lining up, then we should allow our local school board to make that decision. However, when the state steps in and decides that we're going to take public dollars and look at putting them in private education, then where's the public accountability? There is none. So with gold scholarships and scholarships for vouchers, we must look at accountability measures. So yes, I do think we need to revamp that program by making sure there can be some accountability for those who take those vouchers and go to private schools to ensure that they're meeting the same standards as public school teachers have to meet each and every day with testing and et cetera. If we do that, then we're creating equity in the program. If we don't do that, then we're allowing public dollars to pass through private institutions and no accountability.
Candidate Scott, same question. What is your position on the growing interest in vouchers for private schools? And do you think the program needs to be retooled, or is it being administered properly?
Well, let me be clear on this. If it involves taking money out of our public schools, I am not for it. If it involves where we're not looking at increasing teachers' pay, if we're not looking at dealing with the issues of overcrowded classrooms, where we haven't even addressed the morale issues that are going right now in the school system. Our teachers are burned out. Our teachers are overworked. They're underpaid. And I can relate to that because I deal with it every day in my life in the profession I'm in. So that money that's going towards vouchers will affect our babies that we just talked about, and it's not right. So I'm totally against it. I believe also we need to look at, I believe also we need to look at the education formula was apportionated to our school system, and that hasn't, the general education fund, that hasn't been touched probably since the 80s. So most of our schools right now are underfunded. So the voucher program, I'm totally against. And we need to invest more monies back into our school system. Thank you.
Candidate Scott, what is your position in respect to increasing the state minimum wage? Should it be tied to the rate of inflation?
If I'm not mistaken, the minimum wage in Georgia is around $5.25. It's not even the federal wage. So yes, we do need to increase it. That's only going to happen from the federal side. If they don't increase, if the federal government doesn't increase the minimum wage, and right now, to your question, tied to inflation, it needs to be a minimum of $15 an hour. Now, I would tell you that local small businesses and corporations probably are not going to do it unless they're forced to. But the sad fact is, and I work for a Fortune 200 company, and companies that can afford it are not doing it. They're grossing billions of a lot of these companies are grossing billions of dollars a year in profits, not in revenue, but in profits. And they refuse to take care of the frontline workers. So the minimum wage in the state of Georgia is ridiculous, and we need to address it. But we also need our federal partners to really have our back when we bring these measures up and really push that $15 an hour wage to $15 an hour. I mean, I honestly believe is totally, almost borderline slavery, the wages that we pay our frontline workers. So that needs to be addressed.
Candidate Malo, the same question to you. Candidate Malo, the same question to you. What is your position in respect to increasing state minimum wage, and should it be tied to the rate of inflation?
I do think we need to increase the state minimum wage from $5.15 to adopt the federal standard. I do not think we should tie that to the rate of inflation, because when the market corrects itself with inflation, so will those wages. If they rise through inflation, then those same wages will decrease as inflation comes back down. What I do think we need to do is we need to support a minimum wage that is palatable to small businesses in the state of Georgia, which are the lifeblood of Georgia. Most employers will pay a decent wage. However, we've got a lot of bad actors who do not pay employees W-2 wages. They pay employees by 1099 and make them subcontractors. And so it may be attractive that they say $15 an hour, but that employee may not be receiving a W-2, and that company not paying payroll taxes. And so we need to make it tougher for those individuals in this state to cheat, who decide to pay workers a higher wage but not pay them or treat them as an employee, and that's employee misclassification. That's an issue and a bill that I hope the governor signs pretty soon that we've done in this session to address and deal with employee misclassification, which directly ties to how much a person is paid and what the wage they are paid as well, because many workers found out through the pandemic that they were 1099s instead of W-2 employees when they had a set schedule and a set hour to be at an employer's place of business each and every day. So we need to make it harder for those companies who choose to cheat workers and employees in their state, but we also need to give the market and the private businesses the opportunity to set their wages. And so we can do that by partnering with the federal government to adopt the federal standard, but looking at what is a livable wage in the state of Georgia? What do studies suggest that livable wage is? What's palatable to business? Is that $10 an hour? I think we have to let our local community lead the way in that charge. I know the city of Savannah has done so. We need the county to do so and the rest of the state to follow, and we can work together on that solution together. Thank you all.
Candidate Malloy, the question to you, sir, is about Port Wentworth. City of Port Wentworth is looking to dissolve the city or splitting it. So far, the state hasn't allowed it. Will be incumbent upon you, if elected, to perhaps represent the bill, whatever it might say, and work to pass it. What is your thoughts about splitting the city of Port Wentworth?
Splitting the city of Port Wentworth is not an issue that I'm actually interested in. I'm not interested in dissolving a city. So I worked with my colleagues in the State House this time to make sure that that didn't happen. And what we asked was, if the elected officials desired to split the city, let's bring in the Carl Vinson Institute of Government to find out if it was even feasible. I believe in making decisions off sound information, and the only way to make a decision like that is to have a feasibility study performed by the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, in which they've come in and recently said that they aren't even going to perform the study. And so what we have is political discourse taking place in Port Wentworth, and I'm not in favor of splitting or dissolving a city. I think if a city was created, we have to work through those political differences to come to a common outcome, because we all represent Georgians, we all represent the citizens of Port Wentworth in our respective capacities. So we have to make sure that we're able to work together. And if I represent the city of Port Wentworth as the state senator, I work with those elected officials to try to make sure that they understand that we all have to work together to find a common good and a common thread. Dr. King said we're all wrapped in a single garment of destiny together. And so with that being the thought process in mind, they're all wrapped in a single garment of destiny for the citizens of Port Wentworth, and we have to work together to make sure that we set aside those differences and do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Port Wentworth. And dissolving a city is a massive undertaking. It takes the splitting of assets, resources, allocation of departments, and that is just something that we should not do as a government. So that would be a bill that I would be opposed to, and being the only senator to represent the city of Port Wentworth as a local bill, I would not be supportive of that measure at all, and I worked this session to make sure that didn't happen. Thank you.
Candidate Scott, same question to you. City of Port Wentworth is looking to dissolve, split in two, or splitting it, shall I say. So far, the state hasn't allowed it. It would be incumbent upon you, if elected, to represent the bill, whatever it might say, work to pass. What's your position?
I think right now you're dealing with this great dysfunction in Port Wentworth. The leader of the city only wants to dissolve it because he doesn't have control of the party now. And this is the same guy that wouldn't even hold a meeting, because he couldn't have his way. So no, we shouldn't even have discussed that as an option, where another sitting rep that doesn't even represent Port Wentworth came in to try to bring conversation around that. So it's wrong. If he doesn't want to represent the mayor, if he doesn't want to represent the city, he should have stepped down from office. So no, we should not dissolve the city. If the public if their citizens were interested, then yeah, do a study. And I believe they had someone come in and it didn't get done, but absolutely not. It's almost like taking your football home because you lost after the game. You don't do that. You don't do that, and you have a responsibility to your citizens to represent them. So it's wrong? No, I do not support dissolving Port Wentworth. Hire new leaders, is what I say.
Candidate Scott, District 2 is quite diverse. What do you think is the most single pressing issue of that district?
I think right now it's public safety. We touched on it a little bit before. And a lot of our politicians, mostly the local municipalities, are getting kind of blamed for everything that's happening. And I think it's unfair. I don't think we can police our way out of this. I don't think that we can blame the mayor or the council or whoever around this issue. Public safety is a big problem. We have, I think right now in the Savannah municipality, we have 100 officer shortage that's going on. The morale is low. They're burnt out. We went through this pandemic the past couple of years, and we're dealing with this tremendous gun violence. So we have to address that. I touched on, my ideas of how to quick fix it, but I think it goes back to really focusing on our kids. We have to catch this next generation. We have to invest in them. We have to make sure that they're getting the foundation and tools to be successful, to be better leaders. They are our future. I mean, it's a cliche, but these kids are our future, and we have to address that. We have to develop programs, wraparound services in our schools, make sure we have all the appropriations to make them successful in life. Thank you.
Candidate Mallow. Mallow.
Thank you, Greg.
Trying different phonetic ways to spell it. Single most pressing issue in District 2, how do you plan to address it?
The single most pressing issue in District 2 is social mobility. Social mobility encompasses affordable housing, it encompasses criminal justice, it encompasses jobs. Because when people look for opportunity, they want to make sure that they can climb a ladder. We all started off in life with an ideal that we would not be the same place we were 30 years from now. And every person that's in the 2nd Senatorial District, I believe, has the same vision, that where they started their life and where they may be ending their life is not at the same place. And so social mobility talks about when one rises, we all rise together. And so we all rise together in our community by making sure that we have investments in public education, we have investments in affordable housing, we have investments in criminal justice reform, because if there was a magic bullet and tougher sentences kept people from committing crimes, there would be no crimes today. The fact is that those sentences don't decrease crime. We need more investments in education, but we need to make sure that we're increasing the opportunities so that people see something greater for themselves. A man or woman with no hope or no vision and no hope to see tomorrow is a person who just only lives and sees for today. And so by instilling hope in our younger generation and the current generation that I represent, millennials and others, by giving them hope and helping them to see that there is something better for tomorrow and there is an opportunity for social mobility by interconnecting all of our communities, I think we're better apt to serve the 2nd Senatorial District so that when one rises, we all rise together, because we're all tied in this together. We're all Georgians. We're all citizens of Chatham County. And it's time that we come with a global, regional perspective than the individual self. If you only focus on the I, you're only going to get results for I. If we focus on the collective we, then we all will rise together, and we as a community can face many of our issues and challenges together and solve them collectively. Thank you.
Candidate Mallow, the state of Georgia has no plans to curtail carbon emissions and address a global problem. A recent Georgia Tech poll found that about 60% of people in the state want state leaders to set goals to reduce the effect of climate change. Port, transportation to and from the port have a material impact on Georgia's natural resources and environment. Do you support something to reduce carbon emissions that might impact that industry?
Absolutely. I think we have to look at emissions testing. When we look at all of the increased amount of traffic that we have throughout our community, we have to look at ways to reduce that carbon footprint, but we also have to look at investing in green technology. There are many opportunities through the port that we can use green renewable energy to do a lot of the jobs that we have out there, such as with some of the jockey trucks. Could those trucks be electric to help reduce that carbon footprint? I think locally we've invested in some electric vehicle buses and other EV vehicles, but we have to look at what does that carbon footprint look like and how to reduce that, and how to reduce that with trucks on the road, also with trains. And we have to look at different ways to offload that cargo, put it on a rail, but also the port is a robust operating engine for our local community. It creates a lot of jobs. There's a lot of investment there. So when we look at renewable energy to reduce that carbon footprint, I think we can address that, but also looking at our coastal flooding issue and looking at how sea level rise is affecting us as a global community. The state does have a role to play in that. We need to also look at our federal partners to assist us with beach erosion and some of the other energy-related renewables that we have to address to help make sure that the port is operating, but it's operating at a way where those vehicles can be renewable. We're looking at beach erosion. We're looking at our coastal flooding and our infrastructure related to that to make sure we're putting trucks on the road in the best way possible. We're looking at some emissions testing to make sure that vehicles that shouldn't be operating on the road are not operating on the road, putting those harmful pollutants in the air. And once we do all of that, I think we can come back and perform a feasibility study and see what does our carbon footprint look like and how can we reduce it by 2020, 2030, and so forth, so that we have a plan moving forward. We can't just end it all tomorrow. We have to look at a plan, and we have to do a plan that will be affordable to the state and our local communities as they partner with us. Thank you.
Candidate Scott, would you like me to repeat the question, or would you like to go forth? Repeat the question. State of Georgia has no plan to curtail carbon emissions and address a global problem. Recent Georgia Tech poll found that 60% of people living in Georgia want state leaders to set goals to reduce the effect of climate change. The port, transportation to and from the port have material impact on Georgia's natural resources, environment, as well as business community. Would you support a bill that would take into effect the port, transportation to reduce carbon emissions?
Absolutely, I would support it. I call I-16 right now Little Atlanta. It is so many trucks, and I ride it every day. It is so many trucks from the ports that are driving our roads. It's overcrowded. We failed the infrastructure, and it's almost to the point where it is a safety risk driving our interstates in our local areas now. So we need to address it. We need to address our green space. I live in a community where before they built the houses, they cut down all the trees, like every single tree in the subdivision to build. That is wrong. That is wrong, and that affects our air quality. It affects our health, and we need to put in laws to protect our environment. I'm glad to see, I believe the city of Pooler did put in recently some green space laws in their local municipality, but that's definitely something I think we need, with the Georgia Ports Authority, and they are vital to our economics in our community, but they also hold some responsibility. They hold some responsibility to making sure that they're helping with the pollution, they're helping with the air quality, and this is something that we definitely, as a state legislator, have to address. Thank you.
Kenneth Scott, how do you propose to address the severe housing problems if elected to be the senator for District 2? What do you think the severe housing problems are? How would you address them within your first term?
Severe housing problem, definitely housing, especially in this Savannah municipality, is a huge problem. We have almost 1 out of 4 citizens living in poverty. So even higher wages, which I do propose, will not fix the issue. Because right now, you can't get probably a 2-bedroom apartment for under $1,200, $1,300. And the average frontline worker cannot support that and live and provide for their families. I suppose with helping our municipalities, working with programs, we can create vouchers, we can help. I think one of the main points that I want to do coming into the legislation is to help with child care subsidy, because I understand that the rent is not the only expense that average citizens, especially citizens that's living below the poverty line, have to deal with. They're dealing with child care expense, they're dealing with health care expense, and there are different functions that create this need to really that's really going to affect what they can do. So this is a huge problem, and I'm looking to work again with the municipalities and our local governments to help fix that. Thank you.
Candidate Mello, how would you address the severe housing problem? Senate District 2, what do you think they are? What bill would you introduce in your first term, if elected, to address this?
So the first bill that I'm going to introduce is a constitutional amendment. That constitutional amendment would allow local municipalities, county and city governments to enter into long-term lease agreements past 10 years. Current municipalities are locked in where they can only take on an affordable housing development for at least 10 years through lease property. Well, if you think about the market, you usually will purchase a home for a 15 or 30-year mortgage. So I want to propose a constitutional amendment that you, the voters, would have to vote on that would allow municipalities and county governments to enter into at least a 30-year lease agreement for the purpose of developing affordable housing, so that a municipal government, a county government, can partner with the developer to build more affordable housing so that the incentives are there over a period of time of 30 years. Also, I'd like to increase funding to the Department of Community Affairs for first-time homebuyers, because in order to solve our housing crisis, we have to move people from a pathway of renting to home ownership. In Chatham County, approximately 40% of the homes are actually owned by individuals here. The other 60% are owned by usually corporations or outside entities who come in, purchase homes to rent them, Airbnbs and others. So we have to make a platform where we can increase the opportunity for those who wish to buy a home to have access to the funds to be able to do that. And that is also a way that we reduce poverty. So by partnering with local governments like the City of Savannah, who have the Dream Maker program to purchase a home, we also need to increase that amount of dollars allocated to DCA for first-time home buyers from $5,000 to $10,000 to increase the gateway for people to have home ownership. Should a person not choose a home, that's not a penalty, but we need to make sure that whatever our development is in the city, that the state unties the hands of municipalities so that they can do what's best for their community to ensure they can create affordable housing the best way they need it, and we need to help do that with a constitutional amendment. Thank you.
And that is all the time that we have. One final wrap-up question. So this will be.
For them to wrap up, for the candidates to wrap up.
Yeah. They're going to give their final closing remarks, I take it. Since we did the coin toss, we'll flip it. Candidate Mello, you're wrapping up for going first.
Well, Greg, thank you to you for an awesome job moderating tonight, to the League of Women Voters, to the citizens of Senate District 2, to all of you that are here tonight. I greatly appreciate you coming out to listen to this forum. As your candidate for the 2nd Senatorial District, I plan to continue my work to increase affordable housing, to reform juvenile justice, to connect our communities with social mobility and transportation, to also make sure that we have access to the ballot box and that I can expand health care, to also protect those most vulnerable Georgians, but also to make sure we can decrease motherhood mortality. We'll fight for the environment, and we'll do it all together as a collective body. I've served you in House District 163 for the last 2 years, and I'm glad that you all chose to send me to Atlanta to be your state representative, and now I'm asking that you send me back to be your state senator, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 24th, and if you have any questions, you can connect with me on social media, Facebook at State Representative Derek Mallow, Derek for Georgia on Instagram and Twitter, or go to my website at www.derekforgeorgia.com, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions or take on any issues that you have. And I hope that what I have done as state representative will speak for me and that you would choose me to be your next state senator. Thank you.
Candidate Scott.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and thank you, Representative Mallow, for participating in this forum. You know, I'm just like you. I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a leader in the community, I'm your next door neighbor. you know, and I want to go to the Capitol to be the voice for you. I want to listen to you. I want to hear your issues, and we need common sense leadership to address many of the issues that are going on right now. We need to address this healthcare situation that we got. We must expand Medicaid. We must expand Medicaid in our state. We have to address the fair voting rights, making sure we're securing it for all Georgians, and then we have to reinvest back into our children. So thank you again for having me. Again, you can get me on Facebook. My website is votefororlandoscott.com. And thank you again for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, too, so much for participating tonight. We enjoyed hearing what you had to say. We're going